Since the beginning of human consciousness, man has been in pursuit of answers to questions that have plagued humanity's existence. Why are we here? Are we alone? Why am I in this room? I swear I came in here for something. Now, thanks to advances in technology and an unyielding team of researchers centered in North Portland, the answers to these and many other questions have been unearthed. Through the use of revolutionary new techniques in scientific research, the team gave up, and instead crafted a machine capable of sliding sideways. This is the story of the Drift. So in case you couldn't figure it out, this video is about a project, about an assignment, about drifting. So what is a drift? According to an insider, Wikipedia, drifting is a driving technique where the driver intentionally oversteers, causing a loss of traction in the rear wheels or all tires while maintaining control for the entirety of a corner. So what does that mean? It means that the driver cranks the front wheels so fast that the rear wheels lose traction and slide about.
I'm sailing away, set an open course for the virgin sea, 'cause I've got to be free, free to face a life that's ahead of me. On board, I'm the captain, so climb aboard. We'll search for tomorrow on every shore, and I'll try, oh Lord, I'll try to carry on. A gathering of angels appeared.
So essentially, drifting is a really cool way to make a turn. Now how does that relate to physics? That was a question we struggled very hard to answer because, let's face it, this was all just an excuse for us to drift in school. But then, in a stroke of genius, we had an idea. Let's try to convince our teacher that this was all about weight distribution somehow, and the purpose of this project was born. In the words of good old JT, the purpose of this project is through experimentation deducing the optimal position for weight distribution to maintain the most velocity through a 90-degree turn. Elementary, my dear Watson. Yeah, I didn't get it either, but the Thielmanator explained it to me like this. Where do we put the weight so that we can go around a corner without slowing down? And so we set our sights on the end goal of creating the perfect drift. In order for us to experiment with the concept of drifting, we had to be able to simulate it physically. A real car was ruled out due to liability, danger, and some people being afraid of my driving. We had to go smaller, and we settled on the idea of using a go-kart. The earliest of our designs of the kart went through much thought and scrutiny. In order for it to simulate drifting, we brainstormed ways to have the rear wheels slide in all directions. Our initial inspiration for making this work was a 3-wheeled Razor scooter with 2 rear caster wheels, allowing movement in all directions. We were going to cross this idea with the go-kart, having front-wheel drive. The power for this setup was to come from a salvage electric scooter mode. The first major engineering problem came with converting a scooter with 1 wheel in the front to an axle with 2 wheels and a steering system. With no way of overcoming this with our resources, we scrapped the idea of 2 front wheels and settled for using the pre-existing steering of the scooter, meaning we only had to move the motor to the front. The next problem came with our rear drifting mechanism. Soon after our design was created, we realized with free-spinning casters in the back, there would be no control of its drift. It would simply slide out of control. We had to think of a way to be able to switch between a free-spinning drift and straight driving in a controlled manner. After all, drifting is about staying in control. In a stroke of genius, we realized that a caster wheel with the base at an angle cannot spin, but when the base is parallel with the ground, it spins freely. Using a hinged wheelbase and a rod leading to the driver's hand, we could switch between the 2 functions and the drift kart was born. Construction of our kart began with an electric scooter. After stripping the scooter down to its frame, we found many useful things, including wheels, a 400-watt electric motor, a chain, and a throttle complete with wiring. Many sections of the frame were hacked off, leaving a steering system on which to build our custom frame around. This frame was built out of Kindorf, a steel used for construction, and was bolted together to the pre-existing frame with half-inch bolts. Our drift wheels were caster wheels attached to an L-beam, and the entire assembly was reinforced with Kindorf. An angled pipe served as the handbrake, with the throttle placed where the driver's hand went. The drift assembly was mounted to the kart frame by hinges to allow the changing of wheel position. The motor was mounted to the steering mechanism to allow it to turn with the wheel. With the construction now done, we started our experiment. Let's see how it drives. Now that we know it drives, let's explore the functions. The wheelbase can be changed as shown, with the handbrake being lifted and lowered. The length of the handbrake adds leverage, so it can still easily be switched with weight on the cart, such as a person sitting on it. With the wheels in the angled position, the fulcrum on which the cart turns is at the rear wheels. Also, while in this position, the rear wheels can only spin in one direction, forward. The wheels cannot turn, no matter the sideways force applied. When the handbrake is lifted, the casters are brought parallel to the ground in a neutral position. In this position, the cart can turn around its center, doing a full 360-degree turn while in place. This position also simulates the drifting for our experiment, as the cart can drive entirely sideways. While drifting, the back wheels spin free of traction to the ground. This loss of traction means that there is little to no friction between the wheel and the ground, allowing sideways motion where there would otherwise be none. The casters simulate the lack of friction by literally rotating and spinning in the sideways direction, emulating a drift. Once everything functioned properly, we began our experiment. The setup for this was relatively simple. A run-up with a 90-degree turn to the left. Using stopwatches and meter sticks both before and after the turn, we could calculate the initial and final velocities, and use those values to find the velocity retained through the turn. The variable we changed was placement of extra weight. On the first test we added no weight, just ran the cart through the system. The next test, weight was added to the center of the cart. On this test, weight was added to the right side of the cart. For the final test, we added weight to the left side. Looking at the graphs, we see with weight added to the left, it retained the most speed. Our hypothesis is that this result is due to the weight creating a natural fulcrum for the cart to turn on. In simpler terms, the cart naturally turned to the left, where the weight was. This resulted in the cart keeping the most speed through the turn. Our perfect drift.
Hey, that's pretty good.